A Dan O'Donnell Show exclusive later this hour. A lawsuit now filed over the Department of Public Instruction's water park getaway. We will have all the details just into us a couple of minutes ago. Just in a Dan O'Donnell Show / Heartland Post exclusive. The Heartland Post, of course, our brand new conservative media digital venture. We have got it up in full, heartlandpost.com. Our great friends at the Institute for Reforming Government, or IRG, have now filed the first legal complaint against the state's Department of Public Instruction over the infamous water park retreat. Now, you might remember this. It was first broken by the Dairyland Sentinel in the summer of 2024. DPI took a whole bunch of teachers and educational bureaucrats to the Chula Vista Resort in the Wisconsin Dells. They spent $368,000 on a water park weekend. That's taxpayer money, $368,000. The topic du jour? Well, it was unilaterally changing state testing scores to make it seem like Wisconsin's K-12 students were doing a whole lot better than they actually were. It was a multi-day series of meetings. It was not publicly noticed, meaning there was no public awareness that this meeting was going on. Obviously, since our friends at the Dairyland Sentinel just found out about it a couple of months ago after months and months and months, I think almost a year of delays in getting the open records regarding this secret meeting. It was, of course, closed to the public, and everybody who was involved at this meeting was forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement. So what today's action, filed just a couple of minutes ago, literally about a half hour ago, by the Institute for Reforming Government, or IRG, what it alleges is that this violated Wisconsin's open meetings law, primarily because it absolutely violated Wisconsin's open meetings law. The complaint was filed with the Adams County District Attorney because the Chula Vista Resort is in Adams County, so IRG filed there. Adams County DA now has 20 days to decide whether to investigate and file not criminal charges, but administrative charges. If, let's say, that there are charges filed against the Department of Public Instruction, if a court finds that the open meetings law was violated, then any actions taken at a meeting that was not held in accordance with the open meetings law would be null and void. This means that the new state standards, the lower standards, the new cut scores that were adopted in the summer of 2024 that went into effect that school year, that even Governor Evers, the education governor himself, was hypercritical of, that those would actually be null and void, that those would have to be redone under an open setting. If the Adams County DA, who I am told is a Tony Evers appointee, it is going to be very likely that he decides not to take any action against the Department of Public Instruction. Then the IRG says it's going to pursue the case itself, meaning it's going to sue the Department of Public Instruction over the violation of the open meetings law, and it's going to get a judgment in Adams County Circuit Court. It could conceivably file in Dane County Circuit Court, but I believe they're going to keep the lawsuit in Adams County Circuit Court. According to a statement just put out by IRG General Counsel Jake Curtis, DPI cannot lower academic standards in secret and simply expect parents and students to accept the outcome. Working groups created by DPI are not exempt from Wisconsin's open meetings law. Taxpayers funded this process, but DPI shut them out. A state agency doesn't get to spend public dollars, make consequential decisions, and then hide the process from public scrutiny. 88 different educational bureaucrats were put up at your expense. You paid for them to go in the lazy river and go down the Great Plunge water slide while unilaterally lowering what are known as cut scores so that it looked like Wisconsin's students were doing a lot better than they actually were. And this was actually proven definitively on national testing standards. When you compare Wisconsin's forward exam, okay, when you compare the forward exam to the national standardized tests, it reveals a truly stunning discrepancy. According to Jill Underly, the state superintendent's lowered standards, in the first year of the, I'll call them the water park standards, it showed that 52% of Wisconsin's school children are proficient in reading. The National Assessment of Educational Progress, the NAEP, and I realize, folks, I'm using a whole lot of acronyms. I'm sorry. You've got IRG, you've got DPI, you've got NAEP, you've got LBGTQIA plus minus ampersand question mark. It's just these organizations that lot of initials. I'll try not to use the acronyms when possible. But Superintendent Jill Underly's water park standards on the forward exam, and I believe state testing is actually going on right now. I'm pretty sure my kids are taking forward exams. I don't know. They take so many standardized tests. Parents, if you've got school-age children, you know where we're at. When I was a kid, back in the Neolithic age, when we were just learning to use written language, I was banging away on my slate tablet. I think we took the Iowa Basics, and that was pretty much it. That was like the only standardized test we took. I went to a Catholic school, so I don't know. Maybe a generation ago, kids were taking standardized tests. I don't remember taking standardized tests in high school. Now it, of course, is the thing because No Child Left Behind and so forth. Now we want to see objectively how kids are doing, and I don't really have much of an issue with that. It just seems like a significant portion of each school year is dedicated to standardized testing. The forward exam is Wisconsin's standardized test. At this water park retreat, Underly and her 88 educational bureaucrats who spent $368,000. How do they do? Is WKTI still giving out the Dell's coupon books? I can remember when I first started in radio, like the most sought after thing every summer was a Dell's coupon book. And they had just incredible deals in the coupon book. At Reitman and Miller, we would go to different appearances and they would give away the Dell's coupon book. And everybody wanted the coupon book. Suffice it to say, DPI was not using the old Reitman and Miller coupon book. How do you spend $368,000 at the Dells? For goodness sakes, Mount Olympus has like 50 different motels that they bought up. You could probably get one of those for like $60 a night, plus you get into the water park for free. And it's not a rip on Chula Vista. Chula Vista is a fantastic resort. $368,000, my goodness. So Underly and her 88 educational bureaucrats, in secret, they all had to sign NDAs because they didn't want the public to know what they were doing, unilaterally changed what are known as the cut scores to, so for example, let's say you're all familiar with the standard grading system. 100% to 90% is an A, 90% to 80% is a B, that sort of thing. Well, the cut score would be 90%. That is the cutoff from an A to a B. Underly and the bureaucrats unilaterally changed the cut scores so that lower scores were deemed to be proficient, meaning at grade level, in reading and in math. Wisconsin Forward Exam, the very first year, 2024-2025, in which the lower scores were used, 52% were rated as proficient in reading, 52%. Then the NAEP, National Assessment of Educational Progress, came out, and just 31% of Wisconsin students were rated as proficient in reading. A 21% difference in Jill Underly's newer lowered standards. That is fourth graders on the 2024 forward and national tests. That's down from 33% rated as proficient in 2022 on the national test, 36% in 2019. 39% of fourth graders. And why it's so critical to have proficiency in reading at this level, because third, fourth grade, that's when everything with respect to reading starts to come together. And by fifth, sixth grade, once you get into middle school, that's when things really start to take off. And if you don't have the basics in reading, if you're not up to speed with your peers, at least at a basic level, you're going to be left behind. And this is where kids really start to get left behind. Well, 39% of Wisconsin school children, fourth graders, scored below basic in reading. Do you know what that means? You know what that means? They are 2 grade levels behind. Proficient at grade level. Basic, 1 grade below. 39%, nearly 40%, 4 in every 10 fourth graders in the state of Wisconsin, below basic, 2 grade levels behind. In math, 42% of fourth graders were proficient, not 54%, as the forward exam explained. In both fourth grade reading and mathematics, Wisconsin's black students ranked dead last in the nation. 8% proficiency rate in reading, 5% proficiency rate in math. That is flat out embarrassing, especially for liberals who claim to be the most anti-racist people on earth. And boy, oh boy, they will have 50 different celebrations of Black History Month. But when it comes to actually educating black children, that doesn't seem to be too much of a priority. In Milwaukee, just 5% of fourth graders scored proficient in reading. Just 5% did in math. To put that into perspective, according to the Institute for Reforming Government, 90% of fourth graders in Milwaukee, black fourth graders in Milwaukee, were likely to get this question wrong. Now, I know there are a bunch of kids listening to me. I'm sorry, kids, that your mom picked you up from school and she's not letting you listen to Sabrina Carpenter, that she's making you listen to me. But I want to test you. Producer Doug, you're going to be tested as well. I'm going to give you a series of numbers, and you're going to tell me which numbers are the odd numbers. 698, 699, 700, 701, 702, and 703. 90% of black fourth graders in Milwaukee would get that wrong. Fourth graders. That I don't even know what to say to that. The response from the woman who is in charge of K-12 education in this state is to try to mask that utter failure of black kids in Milwaukee, black kids across the state, by simply lowering the scores to try to mask the utter incompetence of public school teachers. And the fact that they did this while treating themselves to a luxurious water park weekend just makes this all the more disgusting. Jill Underly has been invited to testify on Wednesday about this exact subject before the state legislature, and she had better doggone well show up. Because frankly, it's not just that. It is, I'm not sure if you noticed, a recent string of sexual assault allegations and criminal charges filed against teachers across the state of Wisconsin. This comes after a bombshell Cap Times investigation back in the fall that showed that DPI was systematically covering up allegations against teachers and allowing them to just quietly surrender their teaching licenses instead of facing full investigations for their alleged misdeeds. So you've got allegations that there are sexual assault cover-ups of teacher sex crimes against students by DPI, And you for sure got a cover-up of the secret luxury meeting to change test scores to try to hide the fact that Wisconsin's school children are falling farther and farther behind. Suffice it to say, Jill Underly and the entire Department of Public Instruction have got some serious questions to answer.